The Big Hot
Hello, TruWonder. I hope you guys have been having an awesome week. Maybe some of you started preschool or kindergarten. Summer's over, isn't it? I had such a great summer. My kids and I went to the beach all the time. We played in the sand and we made lots of sand castles. Have you guys ever tried to count the grains of sand at the beach? It's really, really hard, isn't it? They're so tiny. I have a tiny fingerful here. Let me see if I can count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't count this. There's too many and they're too tiny. You know, this kind of reminds me of a story in the Big God story I've read. Remember last week how we learned all about how God made the world and how God filled this garden with trees and flowers and animals and 2 people, right? Do you remember their names? Their names were Adam and Eve, right? And remember last week we learned how after Adam and Eve disobeyed, they had to leave the garden. And this part of the story picks up after that. After Adam and Eve left the garden, they had lots of kids. Their family grew and grew and grew. Their family grew and many, many years went by. But you know what? These people forgot about God. They stopped remembering that promise that God made in the garden. In fact, the Bible tells us that they started to make pretend gods out of wood and stone. They forgot that the one true living God was with them. And so, God spoke to a man named Abraham. And God said to Abraham, "Abraham, you have to leave your people. Leave your people, leave your father, leave your town, and go to a new land that I have for you." God made a covenant with Abraham. Do you know what a covenant is? A covenant is a very, very special promise. You see, God wanted to make a new family out of Abraham. And God wanted to make this family so big that it would become a nation, and that this nation would know the one true God, that they would remember God's promises, and that they would love God and love each other, and other nations would see them and say, "I want to be part of that family." And so Abraham obeyed. Abraham followed God to this new land. And God made a really special promise to Abraham. God said to Abraham, "I want you to look at the sand on the sea. And I want you to know that your family is going to be so big you won't be able to count them, just like you can't count the sand." And then God said to Abraham, "Look up in the sky at the stars. Can you count those stars? I'm going to make your family so big you won't be able to count them like the stars in the sky." And when God made that promise, do you know what God was thinking of? A future promise as well. God was thinking of Jesus. Because you know what's really awesome about Jesus, friends? Jesus came to earth and died for us so that we could be part of God's family, which means that you and I are part of God's family. Isn't that an awesome story? I want you guys to look at these stars and listen as I finish with this blessing for you. Friends, God keeps his promises. The Bible tells us that the Lord is trustworthy in all he promises and faithful in all he does. Friends, may you know God's perfect love for you this day. He created you and loves you very much. May God walk beside you and show you his ways. and may you look for the ways that He keeps His promises. We have some very exciting stories in the weeks ahead, and I can't wait as we learn more about God and God's promises. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.